Just west of
Where you're now street.
Sid.
Okay.
Which one it was we stopped at? Either way, and then we ended up. Yeah. So it's pretty good. Pretty good ride.
Right. Yeah, that's some decent country right there.
All right, at 6 o'clock, stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just a reminder to silence your cell phones. We'll start with roll call.
Mayor Sherman.
Here.
Counselor Basil.
Here.
Counselor Garrell.
Here.
Counselor Lundstrom. Counselor Scalise.
Here.
Counselor Spradlin.
Oh.
Dan and Justin, I apologize. I didn't have you on speaker. We're doing roll call. Counselor Spradlin.
Here.
Counselor Tyree.
Here.
Can you guys hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you good now.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, I got you as well.
Okay. Very good. We do have a quorum. So we'll start with the approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any additions or revisions of the agenda for tonight? If not, I'd look for a motion to approve.
I move that we approve the agenda for the regular meeting dated September 23rd, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Counselor Spradlin.
Yes.
Counselor Basil.
Yes.
Counselor Tyree.
Yes.
Counselor Scalise.
Yes.
Counselor Garrell.
Yes.
Mayor Sherman.
Yes. Approval of the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to go through the minutes, and did anybody find any corrections? If not, I would look for a motion to approve those.
I will mention one suggestion from Counselor Garrell was to put the dollar value in the minutes for the request from Armbar. So I will add that.
Okay. Very good.
I move that we approve the regular meeting minutes of September 9th, 2024 with the correction.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Counselor Tyree.
Yes.
Counselor Basil.
Yes.
Counselor Garrell.
Yes.
Counselor Scalise.
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin.
Yes.
Mayor Sherman.
Yes. All right, visitors and delegations. We don't have any visitors. Does anybody here for citizen comments? Citizens are invited to speak to council on any item that does not have a public hearing scheduled. You guys are here for the work session, huh? Okay, perfect. So we don't have any citizen comments, so we'll move on to management items. We've got our 2025 source of budget renewal for workman's comp and property. We'll have Chris Bostrom report on this one.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
For your consideration this evening, we have received our preliminary 2025 premium quotes from CIRSA for both property casualty and workers' comp. We'll visit about property casualty first. The quote is listed at $257,151, which is an increase of $20,378 or 8.6% over the actual premium cost from 2024. This increase is lower than the average pool-wide increase of 12.6%. It is a little bit of a decrease from the 2024 premium, so it is good, or a minimal increase, excuse me, from the 2024 premium, and not a substantial increase as we saw from 23 to 24. So we're looking there again as a moderate increase for this year. There are several factors that were involved in the increase for the renewal premium, and CIRSA has outlined those factors in their renewal letter, which I attached for you as well, included in your packet. For workers' compensation, the 2025 quote is $324,184, which is an increase of $22,464 or 7.45% over the actual premium cost for 2024. There again, we saw a moderate increase in this premium as well. And a determining factor, of course, number one for our workers' compensation premium is staff compensation. Another factor increases due to our claims history, because we do still have some outstanding claims from far back as 2019. So those play a key factor in establishing the premium rates as well. Both the property and casualty and workers' compensation policies, and the only way to receive a loss control audit credit is to have received a score of 80 or higher in 2022. The city did not receive a score great enough to receive a loss control credit for 2024. So the organization will continue to take a hard look at each of their departments and continue to work to the goal to get that 80 score or higher in coming years. So at this time, staff recommends that City Council approve the new premium rates for property casualty and workers' comp as presented for 2025. Any questions?
Can you explain the 80 score?
From what I will do the best that I can, because I don't quite understand how that all works. But I think the loss control credit has to do with your claims compared to your premiums. And so if you can maintain your claims low enough in that 80 score, then you can get a loss control credit. And I don't know if either one of you can help me with that.
Yeah, so a little more complex than
Okay,
that. Yeah,
okay.
that's part of it. So every year, CIRSA does an audit. They come out in person, and they look at all of our facilities. They look at all of our processes that we have currently in place on paper, how well those are implemented. It factors in some of the different claims and things that have come in, the process in which those went through, and then they essentially rate everything based on those. They meet with each individual department head and go over within this department. These are all the different aspects that we're looking at. Have you done this? How are you doing that? And essentially evaluate us accordingly.
And what did you mention what we scored? What the city scored?
We did not receive an 80. I'm not sure. Do you know what the
Off the
score
top of my
was?
head, I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
I don't think that was.
If I remember right, in the last 10 years, we might have gotten over 81 time. It's probably 2017 or something like that.
It's a lot of safety programs, policies that you have to have in place, and but they're like for police department being part of Lexapol, that gives us some points there, but collectively you have to have a pretty high score to get that.
Keep the rates down. Thank you.
Yep.
So I would have a question of why aren't we meeting the standards to reach that score? And then also what's happening, why do we have all these workers' comp claims? Because that's actually quite a bit in a short amount of time. So I definitely would like to see if we could have a high-level discussion about that, because I know you can't get into the nitty-gritty due to, protecting people's privacy, but definitely would like to understand this a little better.
Yeah, we'll find out what our score is too as well, see
Mhm.
where we ended up.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
So on that, I would look for a motion on this item.
I move that we approve, is it rates or payments?
Renewal.
The renewal for the 2025 CIRSA budget, renewal for workers' comp and property casualty.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Counselor Gorell?
Yes.
Counselor Tyree?
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin?
Yes.
Counselor Scalise?
Yes.
Counselor Basil?
Yes.
Mayor Sherman?
Yes. And the motion passes. We'll move on to finance.
I move that we approve disbursements and payroll for September 10th, 2024 through September 23rd, 2024, totaling $728,201.80.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Counselor Basil?
Yes.
Counselor Scalise?
Yes.
Counselor Tyree?
Yes.
Counselor Gorell?
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin?
Yes.
Mayor Sherman? Yes. That motion passes. All right, our 2024 for budget session. Is this 2025 budget? Should it be 2025?
Should be 2025.
2025 budget. I'll let you kick this off, Chris.
Back again, hello. This evening, the department heads will present to you their proposed 2025 budget line items. Each department head will reference only those items which they feel are of significant value, had a major change, or need to be highlighted. Every line item will not be gone over, as this would be very time consuming, and there are several line items that there's no change. So we do also have one new department proposed for 2025, and that is human resources. So you should see that in your table of contents as we make our way through the presentations this evening. We'll begin our presentation with the police department.
Evening, Madam Mayor, Council. So I relatively stayed consistent from 2024 for my 2025 items. The significant ones, or I say the ones that changed. So Colorado reduced incoming funds for law enforcement for training for the next coming fiscal year. So I did bump up the 1405 travel training. It's under general services. Requesting that be increased from $18,000 last year to $25,000 this year. A part of that is I would like to get more in-house instructors in the police department, so we don't have to send people out to classes and accrue hotel fees and other things like that. So I'd like to be able to use these monies to get some more in-house instructors so we can get a little more consistency there. And then 1406, I'm looking to request from $25,000 to $30,000 for computer maintenance. Looking at getting some new computers in the back. The ones we have, I'd say we're getting a little long in the tooth. Computers, unfortunately, do tend to, I'd say, advance a little bit quicker than other technologies. So, and on top of that, we've had to utilize Gertz Technologies, our IT department, for some more stuff since then. So, I'm looking at requesting that if possible. And then a item that I removed from 2023's budget, from 2023's budget, is 1584 for SWAT. It's under the programs portion. I currently have a possibility of 2 members of the police department interested in joining the Northeast Region SWAT team. So with them potentially being in place, I'm looking at reinstating that line item to possibly get equipment, more than likely some training and stuff for them as well. So I'm requesting that as well if possible. Other than that, relatively consistent from 24 into 25.
Looks like you took out the K-9 program.
Correct.
To kind of balance out the SWAT.
That's correct. Yeah, that was removed after Officer Brown retired, and I had discussions to try to get a K-9 program up and running this year. Unfortunately, didn't work out, so I think we put that on kind of the back burner. But not going to look at doing anything with that this year.
Perfect.
Anybody has any questions, concerns? Yeah,
Looks
perfect.
good. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Recreation Cemetery Parks. We'll have Monty go over this for Lance.
Okay, Lance wasn't able to be here this evening, and so I talked to him briefly about his budget. And also went back to some of our preliminary discussions as he was prioritizing for the upcoming year. And so some of those discussions are reflected in his line items. Overall, what you'll find with recreation and most of his line items is that it's really hard to gauge where he's going to be at, because he doesn't really truly know how many kids are going to go out for soccer, how many are going to go out for baseball or t-ball. But most of those are just pass-throughs regardless. So if he's spending money on baseball or soccer, there's money coming in that offsets that pretty substantially. He tries to go at cost where he can. So take his with a little bit with a grain of salt. We just never know how many kids truly are going to be joining those sports. One place that I wanted to bring to your attention was under recreation. That's page 15, if everyone's there. Under recreation, you'll see we're down at the very bottom, item 15 programs. Everyone tracking that? He just was pointing out that one of his goals was to do a lot of maintenance on some of the facilities that he has, and so instead of building new things, let's take care of what we have first. So you'll see a bump in all of those items, 1561 through 1576. He's bumped those up just a little bit each one because he wants to do some maintenance there. The next item is, if you go to page 16, you'll see where swimming pool and special events, those have bumped up. Swimming pools just cost a lot anymore. So we've also had a situation where our employees, they do get pool passes, and so that reduces his revenue, so he figures his expenses are going to go up a little bit. And then just over time, all costs, whether chemicals, everything goes up for the pool. So he said just be aware of that. And then, let's see, I think that was about the only significant changes until you get to, see if I can find it real quickly, to the golf course. If you go to the golf course, you'll see golf course is also pretty expensive, so he's bumped up his chemicals a little bit, fertilizers, etc. So he sees their costs going up there. Golf courses for any community tend to be very expensive, but overall he's been staying pretty consistent over the years in that one as well. And that's all that Lance has on his. And if there's any questions in any of his that you want more information on, just let Miranda or I know, and we'll get that information for you.
The cemetery?
Well, the cemetery was the very first one. I don't think there was a lot of changes in the cemetery. He didn't mention that.
Looked like there was a big pour or something. There was an increase in the,
Let me see.
where is it?
I can talk about that one, Monty.
Oh, you gonna talk about it?
I think that he probably increased for foundation pours because we need to open up more ground in the new North Cemetery.
Yep.
And the concrete is quite expensive and we need to open up quite a few.
So
I
it's
shouldn't
just
say
like
open for sale.
I see that the 24 budget was only 5,500, but I see back in 2023 it was 27 as well into 25. So is it kind of like a rotating type expense?
Based upon need, really is what it is.
Pretty much based on need, but right now we don't have the variety that we like to offer families out there.
Okay.
And we want to pour more for the veterans section. And I'm not sure exactly how many sections he wants to pour, but it's not over what we need. It's probably going to balance out to what we need for 2025.
Thank you.
If there's anything you guys want more information on, just let us know. We'll take note of it and have each department talk about that later, if they're not here.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Dale Colbert.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I, like Chief, have pretty much the same as what we asked for in 2024. There's not been a whole lot of changes or increases, but there are some line items that are just standard, things like signage and chemicals and tools and such. But some things that I'd like to point out is our 1205 building and shop. The 1205 line item is what we consider to be more of the consumables. Things like, for example, you have to get those rags to wipe your mirrors and the glass cleaner and toilet paper and paper towels and soaps and stuff like that. Anything that's consumable pretty much comes out of that 1205 line item. And over the last several years, it's been significantly underestimated as to what we need. And if you look, say, for example, on the page previous, you know, we 9,400, 10,900, and then for whatever reason we didn't think it was going to need that much, so it was 7,000. But we're already up to we're projecting 11,000, so it's just time to increase that and show that true demand on that particular line item. With that, there's the next thing that we're looking at in terms of all these other programs. And again, if you have any questions about any of the programs within the street department, let's be glad to visit with you about it. The next line item is going to be the 1537 line item, Christmas lights. We're looking at increasing the Christmas tree height again this year, so that's going to require more lights. And of course, lights, they tend to go bad and we want to replace them. So I'm looking at a $1,000 increase from $3,000 to $4,000 for Christmas lights. Another line item too that's worth mentioning is the 1545 sidewalk maintenance budget. Even though we're not increasing it over what we had last year, one of the things that I want to just talk about, because this has been coming up a lot lately, to put it bluntly, is that the property owner is responsible for the condition of their sidewalk. I mean, they are the ones who are required to maintain that. That's also with the concrete prices, as what Monty had mentioned about the prices of concrete going up, I think Lorenda did, is that it is sometimes can become a burden. So one of the things we look at as part of this 50/50 program is to help property owners replace some of the areas of sidewalk that need help. Specifically, the 3 criteria that we look at is it an ADA compliance issue? The second thing is there a drainage issue? And the third thing is there a safety hazard involved with it? So if it meets any one of those 3 criteria, we look at that. But aesthetics is not one of the criteria. So yeah, it's got a little spalling, or it's got a crack over here on the corner, but it doesn't produce a safety hazard, a drainage hazard, or an ADA hazard. So if the property owner wants to replace that, they're more than welcome. However, we tend to focus on those areas that have those 3 criteria to look at. And so, and 50/50 is really kind of not accurate. Sometimes the city puts in more like 60-70%, and the property owner maybe that 40-30%, depending on if we're doing the labor, if the property owner is doing the labor. It's not just a matter of getting a contractor. That's something else we've done too, is have the property owner look for 3 bids from private contractors. And we will at that point do a reimbursement to the property owner for 1/2 of that amount that the contractor spent in replacing that sidewalk. But again, aesthetics, and which is the biggest request that we have, does not qualify for this program when there's other areas that need fixed, and that can be a safety hazard or a drainage hazard. So. Then next, I want to go to repair budget, 1703. And looking at it in the past, last year we requested $52,000, and I think the mechanic's been doing a great job. He feels that we don't need that $52,000, so we're going to reduce that by $2,000 this year for the streets. All right, any questions on streets? Okay, next we'll move to water. And I'm going to repeat this every time, that we really don't have much of the overall increase from the previous year. There are some line items that we truly don't have control over. Some of these are related to the chlor-alkali industry, which also relies on petroleum. So one of the items that we look at is the 1206 line item for chemicals. Last year we requested $13,000, and so this year we're going to be requesting $18,000 for it, because chlorine is getting much more expensive. And so keep in mind that one of the things that we'll be looking at with our new RO facility is we'll be doing on-site chlorine generation. And we use salt for that, salt and electricity. So we're not relying on whether the chlor-alkali industry is experiencing ups and downs or even supply chain issues. We'll just generate, salt is plentiful, and we can just generate it on site. Another item that I want to point out is our association dues. Last year we asked for $2,000. This year we're going to ask for $3,500. One of the reasons being is I want to get more of our water operators included in the American Water Works Association. And for that group membership for association dues, it's going to be about $3,000. And so with that, we get more benefits with training, online training, just whatever's happening in the industry. Next, we look at the 1575 English Farms. As you may or may not be aware of, is that English Farm is 30% owned by the water department, 70% owned by the wastewater department. So when that place out there needs mowed, or it needs some sort of work to do some sort of remediation or abatements of some things, then 30% of that comes out of the water funds. And so with that, last year they budgeted zero, and so this next year, 2025, they're going to be asking for $1,000 to help the mowing and the maintenance out there. Then also, this is going to be pretty much common throughout all the budgets that I have, is the 1702 gas and oil. And, you know, nobody really's got a very good crystal ball on how that's going to play out. I mean, with Middle East tensions, political divisions, who knows what's happening with fuel prices. And so we had $13,000 last year in 2024, asking for $15,000 in 2025. And then lastly is the 1704 tires. We've got several vehicles over there at the water department, and those vehicles, unfortunately, they go through the tires. So we'll be looking at wanting to get some better tires on that. That's, again, goes back to safety. And so with that, I'll take any questions on the water. Okay, if there's no questions on water, we'll move on to trash and garbage. And with that, one of the items we're going to point out is the 1201 office supply line item. We talked about CIRSA and their audits and some of the things that we need to accomplish, and training is a big part of that too. And so currently, with the trash department being where they're at and their very tight schedule of when they have to get their routes done, when they have free time, it's not always convenient for them to come in when everybody else is holding the training. So one of the things that they want to do is to get some AV equipment for their training and safety videos in their break room, so they can do it when they have time, instead of trying to work around when we have that availability of training. So we requested $600 last year, so this year we're requesting $1,600, so we're going to increase it by $1,000 to get this AV equipment to help with that. Next is going to be postage, and I see that, and I'm not sure how the postage varies amongst the different departments, but it did. Last year it was $1,800, this year it's going to be $2,500. So, but that's how postage works. Post offices are raising their rates, obviously. The next thing we're going to be looking at is the 1308, the medical. Last year we asked for $1,000. This upcoming year we're asking for $2,000. Again, this medical line item is used for DOT screenings that we're required to do for drug and alcohol testing, as well as CDL physicals. And we've had some of that turnover. We still, I think, you never can tell about turnover in the trash department. And so with that, we want to be able to take and increase that line item from $1,000 to $2,000, just so we don't show a deficit in that. Next is going to be electric and gas. Last year, we requested $6,600. This next year, we're going to request $7,500. Again, we don't control energy prices. And so electric and gas tends to go up. And then on 1406, we have computer maintenance. Last year, we requested $4,000. This year, we're going to request $6,000. The $2,000 increase is because they don't have very good internet service out there. The internet service we have is on loan from the PD, and it's just a hot spot that's on this little tiny, whatever you want to call it, and it's not really good. And so we are looking at getting Viero out there to run some fiber optic, and so we're going to have an internet service provider cost above what we currently have, and so that's the reason for that $2,000. Next line item is going to be 1544, the county landfill. Talking with Cass out at the landfill, he indicated to me that there's going to be a 50-cent per ton increase in tipping fees. That's anticipated for 2025. Their costs go up, our costs go up. Then gas and oil, again, another $2,000. 1703 repairs. We're seeing some of the issues with the trucks. They are several years old now. We're starting to see that. And by the way, running those trash trucks, it's brutal on equipment. It really is. And so what we're looking at is a $5,000 increase in repairs for those. Keep them in good maintaining running order. And then lastly, 1704, we're looking at a $3,000 increase because Again, DOT doesn't really allow for repairing of tires that are more than 5 years old. And when you get that kind of weight on a trash truck and you're running it down the highway, it really does skin that rubber off those tires, and so we have to replace them on a more frequent basis. And I don't know if anybody's priced a set of tires here lately. They're getting very expensive, so. And then with that, I'm entertaining any questions on trash. Okay, moving along to wastewater. Looks to be kind of the same as what we asked for in 2024. One of the items that's going to increase is the 1206 chemicals. Just like with water and their chlorine, we use polymers down there to help with the treatment process, and those prices have just been skyrocketing. So last year we asked for 30,000. This upcoming year we're asking for 40,000. And then we have some engineering. Last year we asked for 20,000. This year we're going to be asking for 28,000. And while we are looking at improving our solids handling, and we've budgeted for this in our capital improvement program, our 5-year CIP, one of the things that's not been in that 5-year CIP or has been budgeted for as of yet on the CIP is looking at Munn's Addition lift station. When I started working here back in 1990, that thing was already 28 years old. And we add another 34 years to a lift station like that. It needs some upgrades. And so right now we're just doing the preliminary engineering. And so Randy is asking for another $8,000 on top of what he requested last year to help do some of that preliminary engineering until we can get that actually put into our capital improvement program over the next 5 years. Then we also have laboratory fees. Again, we're asking for another $15,000 over what we budgeted in 2024. Just as our prices go up, lab prices go up, and so we have to be able to adjust for that as well. Another one will be our permit fee. Last year we asked for $24,000 for our permits. This year we're going to be, 2025, we're going to be asking for it's $26,000. Several things go into that. We've got several permits from the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, and they all have different costs. Pre-treatment permit, biosolids disposal and such. Then we got our regular discharge permit. The legislature had punted the ball to the Water Quality Control Commission to start setting fees for all these permits that deal with Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. Before, we'd always have to rely on the legislature to set what these permit fees are going to be. Now the Water Quality Control Commission has a little bit more latitude in setting those fees to what they feel is more appropriate to run the department. And so we're going to probably see some increases in that. Another place that we tend to see an increase happens to be with our portion of maintaining the USGS stream gauge over by the Rainbow Bridge. And again, this stream gauge is incredibly important because it's showing more real time what the flows are in the South Platte closer to Brush. Before, what they would do is they would go down to the Balzac out by Hillrose, and then they would have to try to add back what all the ditches said they pulled off. Well, that was not exactly accurate. The reason that's important is because accurate stream flows is what sets our limits on our discharge permit. And so we always want to make sure we always have the best information, because if we get the old garbage in, garbage out situation where we run into some bad data, it could really impact the kind of treatment process, or if we have to modify the wastewater treatment plant to take care of that particular. So the better accuracy we have on that data, the better our chances are getting good limitations. Next is the city farm. You'll see that we're looking for a $5,000 reduction in the 1552. The city farm is our biosolids application site. Last year, there was a lot of maintenance. In 2024, we put a lot of maintenance into operating that thing, the sprinkler, the pumps, and everything else that we are required to maintain by our leases. But this year, it looks like we're not going to be trying to invest that kind of money, so we're looking for a $5,000 reduction on the city farm. Next is going to be 1553, the sewer's cleaned. Again, every year we try to clean anywhere from 1/3 to 1/4 of our city sewer lines. It's just good capacity management and operation maintenance procedures to make sure that we don't have backups, we don't have grease buildup, we don't get what we call fatbergs that develop with wipes and everything else. 'Cause we just, and trust me, we've ran into several fatbergs. So, but again, we have that contracted out locally, and with that, their prices go up, and so ours does too. And with that, that's all I have on wastewater. Any questions, comments?
Dale, I had one.
Sure.
You mentioned the Munns Addition lift station.
Correct.
Now, that's part of the Munns Addition Water and Sewer or Sanitation District or Association.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of those members, the city, we bill them,
Mm-hmm.
right? 1.5 times the in-city rate.
Actually, yeah, I think it's, 1.5.
Yeah, and then where other people out in the county pay 2 times.
Correct.
And this is just something we have to research, is that if I remember right, years ago, we looked into it and we were saying, we think we need to get them up to 2 times, not the
Mhm.
1.5. And their attorney at the time said that they're not opposed to going up to the 2%, but at least, or 2 times the
Mhm.
rate, but at least give them some justification why we need to raise it. And if
Sure.
we're having to save up money to put in a new lift station, those are expensive. I'm not sure the last time. How much does one cost? Isn't it pretty
I hate to
pricey?
venture to know what the-
They're pretty pricey though,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, upwards, at least $250,000 for something like this.
Yeah. Okay, so we need to raise the rate to cover, or else the in-city folks are gonna be paying for the
Right,
city.
but what we're doing right now is just looking at the engineering. Because if I understand it correctly, according to our agreement with the Munns Addition Water Sanitation District, is we're responsible for the maintenance of their particular collection system.
Mhm.
And so,
So, gotta look at the rate.
okay. Any other questions? Wastewater. Okay, lastly, we have stormwater. And with stormwater, one of the things that we're looking at, just like with wastewater, we gotta keep our stormwater systems clean. We gotta have those jetted and cleaned out, and, because they are subject to a lot more grit deposition than what we would have with our sanitary sewers. And so last year, we why does that say 2023? I didn't do this very well, did I? This got turned in directly to you, didn't it? Yes, okay. So, in 2024, I believe we budgeted 30,000, and so for 2025, we're going to be requesting 40,000. Again, we use the same company to clean our stormwater lines as what we do our sanitary sewer lines. And then finally, again, 1702 gas and oil, just simply because we don't know. And we are going from 9,000 to 13,000.
Very good.
Any questions on stormwater? Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Dale.
If you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Okay. All right, Chris Bostron. Oh, wait, I'm looking at the wrong line. Tyler, sorry.
All right, well, good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. So I don't have I have but a handful of things to go over as far as any changes. 1303 and 1305 are engineering and our inspectors. I requested a 10,000 increase on the engineering and a 10,000 decrease on the inspectors. Reason being, the engineering with the project that we're working on next to the golf course for the housing and all that, if everything goes accordingly, I anticipate us having to move to phase 2 next year, which would be some engineering costs that would fall on us. And then the reduction on the inspector side is that most of the time those inspectors, the costs on that are actually reimbursed from the property owners and the contractors, GC, whoever is doing those projects. So any excess in there is typically done just for any unusual inspections that need to come up. 1405 for our training costs there, just a general increase in training costs. We got a pretty good team over on our side, and I think that investing into their professional development is good for the career as well as for retention for the City of Brush for our employees. The next one, 1406, we're looking at expanding our MyGov software to include doing our work orders internally as well within that system instead of the handwritten ones that we've been doing historically. So that would cover the cost of moving over to that and being more modern. 1409 is a cost that we have anyway. It was just never put in here for some reason. Each department is billed out for the insurance, and so that's just making a line item for that. 1505, kind of the same story. We used to have it. It went away a long time ago, but typically those funds just come out from miscellaneous ones, but that's specific for engagement for economic development. And then the last one, 1703 for auto repair, that's just a reduction, 3,000. We have a newer vehicle now, thanks for the budget for this year, and so we don't expect those ongoing maintenance costs. That's all I got.
Tyler, when you talked about increasing the line item for the GoGov, MyGov, was it one of like $3,000? Is that from their estimate they gave you of what it's going to cost?
Correct.
Okay, so it's verified.
Yeah.
It's not bad, actually.
No,
Yeah.
not at all.
I thought it was going to be way more.
Sure, I agree. Thank you.
Very good, thank you, Tyler. Tad Anderson.
All right. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. Like everybody else, just a few items have changed. First item, 1207 tools and equipment. You'll see in 24 we were at 20,000. 25 we're down to 5,000. That's because we separated out some of the items out of tools and equipment, and they have their own line item now. So we didn't need that big $20,000. So getting into the professional services, that's where we added the line items. Hose testing, ladder testing, pump testing, aerial testing, SCBAs. Those are all new and broken out, and if you look at those, it shows what's 50-50 split between city and rural. We wanted to make that perfectly clear so that there's no question between the city and the rural that it's a 50-50 split. So
So is
we
the
just
number
wanted
that
to
you put, is that our 50% or is that gonna be split in half?
split.
Okay,
So total cost is what we have showing,
okay,
and then, yeah, it'll be 50-50.
50% of that, okay.
1319 is health, the NFPA physicals, which we actually completed this last week. That 20,000, we were looking at coming out of the 31 fund. But that was the initial physicals, and they are the most in-depth physical that we've ever seen. So, big deal there.
Tad, that one right there, that's where you guys came in a while back and presented to the council, and it's that third party that does these additional ones, right?
Correct.
Was it-
And they came here to brush, they set up in the firehouse.
Mhm.
They did everything local, so we didn't have to send people to Denver or Greeley or where we usually have to.
Is that every year everyone does that, or is?
It is. So the physicals will be every year, but the in-depth physical that we just did, that was a baseline. So next year, like half of that physical will be done. And the following year, the other half of that physical will be done. So it should reduce the cost, but there'll still be an annual cost on that. And we're still working through.
Is that a 50-50 then as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Fireworks, you see, we're requesting additional, like everybody else, costs have gone up. I think we have an outstanding show. We get comments like that always about the show that Brush puts on. And so we just want to maintain that level. And so that's why you're seeing an increase in fireworks from 9 to 13. We do have, it's not in here, we do have $9,000 radio maintenance. We talked about this some time ago in June, I think, about needing to change radios because our Motorola's were being DC'd. So that's where this somewhat comes in, but we have a plan. We can get some money back by moving forward with purchasing the radios, and we can get I think $700 or $800 per radio reimbursement from BK, and so that's coming up fast. We're at the end of the month. I've talked to Monty about that, and we're moving forward with it. Ray should be back in town tomorrow, so that's a first thing on our agenda is to work through that and move forward with that. Gas, tires, repairs, the rest of it is pretty standard. We had, like I said, minor increases in most just because of cost to us, and but the physicals were the big thing by far. And you know, the good thing is now we're in a position that if we have somebody that ends up getting cancer or something like that, we can participate in the cancer initiative, and the government will assist those folks in their treatment. So, in the cost of their treatment. So, any questions?
Looks like your travel training.
Yeah, it doubled, just
Lots of good
because of the
trainings out
cost.
there.
We were talking to one of the, because we have that tower ladder coming in, we were talking to the manufacturers, and in the last 4 years, the cost of most things that say fire on it has gone up 300% in 4 years. And so the cost of doing business is getting tough. So, any other questions? No?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Miranda Beckard.
I don't really have much, just a couple things. For the city clerk budget, the legal line item was established this year. I'm estimating about $1,000 usage for 2024, so I'm budgeting for $1,200 in 2025. For training, I want to increase that by about $2,800 for the addition of the International Institute of Municipal Clerks and the CML conferences. The IAMC conference is to be held in 2025 and 2026 in the States. And so as part of our certification, Chan and I plan to attend both of those. And then we will apply for scholarships for the IAMC, but only 2 each region are granted that scholarship, so we're not going to plan on that. We need a budget for what it will cost. And then for records management, I'm expecting to be over about $3,000 for 2024, and so we need to beef that up for 2025. And what is contributing to that is we have more frequent, or I want more frequent Municode supplements. We need more of the archive for the social media sites. We're adding more Facebook pages, and so we need those backed up. And then we also need more users for Laserfish and possibly expanding the features that we currently offer for that. For municipal court, we are increasing the line item for training, the $2,000 for that IAMC conference, so that we can work towards certification. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you. Kim Knights, Human Resources.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I'll ask that you all bear with me this year since this is brand new. I gathered what information I could from finance before Joanne retired. on what she felt was coming out of the general fund in general towards HR. The biggest things that we have for increase is legal services. As you can see there, I tried to give you a breakdown. SURSA is more of employment claims, employers' councils who we go to for all the new laws, the little quirky incidences that pop up that things are changing in the HR world left and right. Legal posters and the CBI checks. Before each department, background checks, physicals, advertising, which is further down the line. That was all done by each branch. But now that HR is on its own, I'm absorbing all of that entails with getting new employees. So that's where that line item is higher, and I put a note in there that 9,000 was paid from other GLs earlier in the year. So I think we're pretty close, but like with everybody else with all these different things going up, it may not be exact. The other things are pretty close. Travel and training is up a little because now with the training I have stuff I have to do to keep it current, to keep it accurate. And then every opposite year, there's additional workers' comp trainings and conferences, so it's not this coming year, but it'll be the next one. Then based on the computer, that was bumped a little bit because I have one of the older ones. And then again with hiring employees, I'm taking on the advertising for each department rather than them doing it on their own. So those figures are all still pretty much the same. It is a little higher in that because we've had to reach out and branch out more for the police department. Their regular advertising isn't working. We're needing to reach out to more of those different iHire Law and some of those to try and fill those spots. But in general, I don't have a whole lot of different stuff, just tried to pull from the general budget to get it in my own spot.
Very good.
Any questions?
It all makes sense.
Just one, Kim.
Sure.
For you and Chris, on your 1301, the legal,
Mhm.
let's bounce it off of the 1301 in admin, because ours is still high over there. I got a feeling that
Maybe it didn't get pulled over.
you didn't get pulled over. And because
Sure.
I noticed that up to the last status report, the numbers are really low, and I didn't know why. But let's look at that one and see if we're putting it in both places.
Okay. And that SURSA one, it might be riding low right now because there is an outstanding claim on that one that we haven't used all those funds, but it still may be coming. Okay?
Thank you, Kim.
You bet.
Monty.
Okay, the first one is the legislative budget. That is the mayor's budget. I reached out to the mayor and no changes. And just for everyone, there's only 4 line items for the mayor and 3 line items for the city council. But no changes there from previous years, last 2 years. And then on the executive, which is the city council's, Miranda had sent out an email asking if anyone had anything that they would like to see from the city council members. And we hadn't heard of anything last I heard, but we kept everything the same there. But just be aware that if something does come up, just give us a shout and we can always adjust down the road as well for the council and the mayor. City administrator, same thing, is just kept everything the same from last year. Everything was under budget, so I expect it's going to be about the same again. So I made no changes there. And then on administrative, there's only one thing. We mentioned the legal, but if you go down to 1406, that's the computer maintenance. And this is just giving you a heads up. Computer maintenance, telephone, things like that. We had shifted over from having a telephone service for in-house telephones, and we went to using the computers and internet for our phone calls. And we have agreements, and we changed agreements the last year. So in the last 2 years, I think we switched twice now. And so we're still watching that for a few years to see what kind of trend and where everything falls. But those telephone might go down a little bit more. Internet services, computer maintenance might go up a little bit, just kind of depends. But overall, not too substantial because they should offset each other. But just be aware of that in the future. Everything else was pretty much the same for administration. That's all I have.
Very good. All right, that kind of wraps up everybody, doesn't it? That was easy. All right. Thank you, everybody, for all the work you put into those. And
Yep. And if there's any questions that you want to ask offline, just give us a shout.
all right, we'll go into staff reports. Tyler Purvis.
I had nothing to report.
Okay. Brandon Flexinger.
Evening again. So I had a few items, nothing significant. First, I wanted to just give a public shout out to my officers. We did have an attempted homicide on the 9th of September. It was pretty significant. Nathan, I did an outstanding job. He was the first one on scene. He was the only one on for us at the time, so he did a great job until we were able to get more people called in and helped. But there was a lot of hours put in by a lot of different people that day, so I thought we did really, really well beyond, obviously, the people that were affected. In the incident itself, nobody from our department was injured, no law enforcement was injured, so they did a fantastic job. Investigation is still relatively ongoing. There's some things to follow up, but they did a really, really good job, so I just want to give a shout out to them. So I also wanted to pass along that I took part in the first safety meeting with the school board, the school safety meeting last weekend. I thought it went really, really well. First time I've been a part of the group, so we did a lot of discussion, kind of how the school safety team puts things together. We started the initial discussions on school and police department training stuff. So Marcia Cody, the superintendent, doing a fantastic job, working really, really well with us. On top of the training discussions, we've also been working towards fixing the radio issues inside the school. If everybody's aware, the secondary campus is kind of a black hole for our radio systems. Really, once we hit the doors and get in, we really can't hear them very well. So she's been really fantastic working and trying to get that fixed as well. On next Wednesday, we're having a swearing-in ceremony for a few of our officers that haven't been sworn in yet. We're also doing an award ceremony. I've got a few awards for a few of the members that I've been getting done, so we're hopefully in a good place to be able to get that done. It's next Wednesday at 6 p.m., so hope you all are able to attend. There'll be cake and other things. So, and lastly, I don't know of anybody here that was here at the time, but we had an officer by the name of Mick Peters that worked for the police department a number of years ago. He was here for a couple of years and then moved on to Milliken Police Department. He's been a school resource officer for a number of years for them. He recently passed away so I just wanted to formally put that out there that he was here for a short amount of time. Mick was a great guy. He was big in Fort Morgan. He owned or ran Cable's Bar and Grill at the time. If anybody knew him, great guy, great guy. So law enforcement community is definitely hurting right now, losing him. I know Milliken PD is definitely hurting with the loss of them, but I just wanted to put out there that keep his family and friends and coworkers in your thoughts and prayers. Colorado and humanity lost a good person right now, so I just want to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brandon, there's one thing I heard that Fort Morgan's having, it's like a community meeting talking about homelessness and the mental health stuff, over in Fort Morgan, and we're so close together. I didn't know if you're going to be part of that or not, but it's supposed to be coming up the next week or so.
Okay. I hadn't been made aware of it, but I can reach out to Chief Sharp and see when that's going to take place, and probably definitely be beneficial to be in attendance.
Yeah, because at a staff level, we've had see some of that.
Correct.
I've talked to an officer, some council members have talked about homelessness and
Sure.
what are we seeing around Brush as well.
Great, I sure do. Thank you.
Thank you. Ted Anderson.
Just a couple things. Gonna be a part of designing a mass casualty incident. We're having a Zoom meeting tomorrow and get all that started, but it's somewhat based on some things that came out of the Western Sugar incident. And so we're looking to get everybody that we can involved. Fire, EMS, hospitals, all of those types of things. We haven't had a practice incident like that in, boy, probably about 10 years. And so that starts tomorrow. So we're working on that. We have a pub ed coming up on the 2nd. There's I think they call it STEAM night at the elementary school. And so we're going to participate in that as well. They're setting up different areas for the kids to come and learn from different people. I assume you guys are going to be there, but I didn't know. Not yet. Okay. So anyway, it's at Thompson, I believe, for a couple hours, 4:30 to 6:30 on the 2nd. And so that's coming up. I think that's it. I think those were my two big things coming up, so.
Tad, do you know if it's official about the rule board going for a ballot question for property taxes?
Yes.
Yes.
They are actively trying to get everything all lined up and start their education. We've been waiting for them to give us the go-ahead to start doing some education as well. We haven't received that yet, and we're running out of time fast.
Yeah, you really have.
So, but yes, they are moving forward with that. Any other questions?
Thank you, Ted.
Thanks.
Del Corey.
Few items to discuss. Obviously, one of them is going to be Cambridge Street and where we're at with that. All the stormwater infrastructure is in place now, and hopefully that'll be the last that we see of any flooding at that intersection forever. So the catch basins are installed, and they've got the concrete curbs also installed to help the flows of water as well. And so with that, they're going to start looking at doing some curb and gutter on the northwest side of the project. And then we'll start working on some of the flat work, get the sidewalks reinstated where we had to use that portion of the city's right of way in order to safely bench our trenches and such. And so that's starting to kick off a little. In fact, I had a discussion this morning with the contractor on the status of where we're at. And so he's going to be moving forward with the curb gutter as well as the flat work, the sidewalks, get that done. And so he's also looking at seating of the golf course and the driving range area sometime later this week. Paving is also set for the first couple of weeks of October. I don't have any correct dates at this point in time. We still got a couple of issues we want to start working through. And then try to get the mud off that street because it's a mess. But it's very tenacious. You can't pick it up when it's wet, and you can't pick it up when it's dry. I don't know what the solution is. However, I do want to reiterate to council as well that in our discussions with the contractor this morning, that restoration is one of his priorities, and so we're looking at wanting to get that taken care of.
Can I ask a quick question about that specifically?
Mm-hmm.
Residents have been wondering why we have orange paint going from Cambridge all the way to Samples. Is it in relation to that project?
Yes, and one of the things that we've talked about, especially with our fiber companies, that when they come in and they were going to be doing boring and putting in fiber optic conduits and the like, was that, hey, we've got this project. If you're in conflict, you have to move your infrastructure. We're not going to redesign ours.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we were installing the last portion of that intersection, there was a conduit that was in conflict. And so when discussing it with the person who was in charge of that, it turned out that he thought that they were going to have to rebore everything, but what they were able to do was get enough slack to get it to lower and then install our infrastructure. So we didn't have to go back and rebore it. And so that was good news for the company, as well as the guy who was in charge of that, as well as our project.
I think
too.
residents were just concerned about more digging.
Yes, and I agree. And so, but I think that it was a little premature to call in the locates before finding out whether or not it could have been lowered. And so this was just an individual wanting to make sure that service was still there and for their customers.
Okay, thank you.
And so it was a little eager to call in the locates, but they're not necessary. So, okay.
Very good.
Any other questions on Cambridge? Okay. Then next is we're doing some work on the VFW parking lot. I think maybe some of you have noticed. We've had an agreement with the VFW for quite some time that we can use that parking, the city can use that as public parking, provided we do some maintenance on it, and we're just now getting to redoing some of those areas that are kind of bad. We really want to make it look nice for, if we're going to have our name associated with public parking, we want to make it look nice. So we're doing some maintenance on that. And it's not a total reconstruction, it's just, but we're going to do some fixes to it. So. Then also, we had a water main break over on Ellsworth. That would have been west of Clayton Street. We've required a closure. I still believe it's going to be still closed at this point. What we saw was that there was water that was coming up over by the museum at one of the handholds that the fiber company had. So the first thing you do is like, okay, where's this water coming from? Was it at the museum's water service? And it wasn't. They actually had to chase this water leak down those fiber conduits for 75 feet before they actually found the actual main break. Because water will take the path of least resistance, and that's exactly what those fiber conduits were. And it just happened to surface 75 feet away. So they were chasing this thing for 3 days, and they had the area closed off today to do some cleanup on the pavement. We want to get it repaved because we're getting late in the season, and our asphalt batch plants are going to be shutting down. So we want to get as much paving done as we possibly can. So they were doing a lot of cleanup today. During that chase of the water leak, there was also some damage to the natural gas line going to the JC building. And so when visiting with XL Energy, everything was just soupy out there. There's not much you could do in all that soupy mud slop that happened. So it's my understanding they're looking at wanting to put a new service into the JC building starting tomorrow. And so I think we'll probably keep that closure going. But if we can't open it up, the sooner the better. We'll try to do that. But it was also a little bit of good fortune because XL said that they saw some things they didn't like along their gas main. So they also want to take this opportunity to do some things with that as well. So then finally, when it comes to water, we have water main flushing this upcoming weekend. Sunday about 11 o'clock to midnight, our water crews will be out flushing our water mains. And then they'll do that again also on Monday night, probably about 11 o'clock, and go into the Tuesday morning, flushing these water mains. Again, this is part of routine maintenance of a water distribution system. There will always be sediment and iron buildup inside your water mains, and just being able to flush these water mains helps keep them clean. And it doesn't allow for areas, for example, if you got sediment in the bottom of your line, that gives you a place potentially for bacteria to grow. That's actually isolated from the chlorine that's supposed to prevent it. So by keeping that sediment out and the iron out of the system, that helps. So we did reach out to a lot of our big water users out there to let them know that, hey, we are going to be flushing our mains on these nights. Make sure that you look at your operations and make sure that you're not pulling in some of this dirtier water. I know that we have some processors that they don't like that dirty water on their carcasses that they're trying to process, and so it's just so they're all aware that we're going to be doing this. And so if any in the public run into any of this dirty water or red water, just put it on your lawn. Run it, get rid of it, put it out on your lawn. So, that should be out on Facebook, I think, as well as the website, as well as reaching out to a lot of the public. But it's worth mentioning as well, in case you get the call.
Dale, when we do those flushings, we're supposed to give a courtesy call, direct call to the Bison facility and
We have.
the cheese. Okay.
Bison, cheese, lamb.
Okay.
We've got Arctic Ice, Ebenezer Hospital,
Super.
schools. I'm pretty sure I'm missing somebody in there. And
Winifred?
cogens as well. You know, let them know as well that we've got all this going on. The one thing that we can't do is always predict what's going to happen in a residential area. So
And when is that happening?
this is going to happen Sunday about 11 o'clock at night.
Okay.
And it'll go until Monday morning, and then they'll come back in about 11 o'clock Monday night, and they will go until Tuesday morning. So we'll try to do it when most people are asleep and try not to interfere too much. So if you got ice makers, turn them off. Yeah, otherwise you're might have some red ice cubes. So okay.
Very good.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Um,
Yes.
The radar feedback signs, the library.
Yeah, I still got to get with Chief on a couple of locations to get things set up, and then I'm going to have to talk to some property owners on the installation of those.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, Dale.
okay, thank you.
Right, Chris.
Hello once again. Just a couple items I want to bring to your attention. The first one is we have received also our renewal notice from CEBT regarding our health coverage. And our premium for 2025 will increase by 13.5%. It's a pretty chunk this time, okay? Kim Dykes and I did have an opportunity to visit with our representative to find out exactly what is causing this large increase. We're finding that we're still seeing some of the problems with the pandemic, still seeing those coming through. We're seeing more routine care visits and finding underlying issues such as cancer and cardiovascular issues. So it's a good thing, but yet that's what's driving those increase in rates as well. And then, of course, the increased cost of securing contracts with the hospitals and the providers as they work to recoup their costs due to inflation as well. So those are the big components that are driving and determining the increase that we see. For our 2024 CEB premium, we're estimating it to be just a little over 900,000, close to 920,000. So with the 13.5% increase, we're looking at just over $1 million, $1,044,000. So it's an increase of 124,000. So just to make you aware, it's another insurance increase that we'll see. But I wanted to end on a good note. Our sales tax revenue is up about 25% over our actuals this time, the same time this year. So our sales tax revenue is up, as well as our use tax revenue is actually up 34% over our actuals this time this year. And the driver of that is the building permits. Our building permits are up 43% from what they reported this year last year. So we're on track to have a good year with our sales tax revenue. So, that's what I have for you.
Very good.
Any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Lorinda.
I'll just mention the email about the Eastmoreland County Hospital Fall Affair coming up in October. I just need to know by the end of the week who would like to go. And that's it.
Very good. Dan Krubb, anything for us?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I just should let you know I attended the CML conference in the Springs this weekend. It was good, and I'll have some legislative updates coming for you soon.
Good. Thank you. Monty.
Right, just a few items. One is I was going to mention, following up with Chris's discussion on the sales tax. You know, that goes to our general fund, but also the fire equipment fund, so that's really going to help out there. And our capital improvements fund for the 2A, which is streets. So, I mean, it's looking really good. We looked at fires, and fires was looking really good. So that's a big positive there. Other thing today, Tyler had put together a economic development stakeholders group meeting, lunch. And one of the things that we had an opportunity to do is just go over briefly the city council priorities for 2025. And if you remember, when we did the community survey, 30% or under were not aware of city council priorities, recreation master plan, community comprehensive plan. So we talked about this when we approved the city council's priorities for 2025, is that we need to start educating the community. So that was a first step, and then we'll start with a little more of a campaign through Facebook, just letting everyone know what those priorities are, ensuring it's on our website as well, just so that people see what direction the city of Brush is going in. The other thing is Chris and I are going to have discussions here this next week, and it's going to be in regards to the ARPA funds or Recovery Act funds. If you remember, we have to have those utilized by the end of this year. We have been utilizing those, and if we don't have them used by the end of the year or later in this year, we have to have them officially obligated to a project. So we have to have that done pretty quickly, and we'll come back to the council with an update of where we're at with all those funds. And it has done a lot of good for the community, different projects where we've helped out subdivisions, housing, apartments, downtown businesses, economic development efforts, etc. So Cambridge Street, it helped out as well on the utilities. So it's been really positive, and if I remember right, we were somewhere around 1.4 million, if that rings a bell. 1.4. And we're down to the final few $100,000s of that we have to make sure we utilize those. Other things, I couldn't remember if I told the council about this, but the discussions about the comm center and an agreement with the county and IGA, that's been put on hold until the new county commissioners come in. So you have those who are going to be dealing with it being part of the decision makers on that, and we'll see where that one goes. Also, there has been some discussion, we talked about the rural fire board doing a ballot question. We've also heard potentially the county might be looking at a county-wide sales tax, which really does affect all of us. So we're going to find out more about that, if that's moving forward at all, and we'll get that back to the council. And last thing, if anyone has any concerns, issues, good, bad, positive, just give me a shout. Always available. That's all I have.
Very good. Do we have any questions for Monty? No? All right, we'll move on to mayor and council reports. Do any councilors have anything to report?
I have two things. Firstly, I'd like to thank the mayor for inviting me to an event this last Wednesday for FLTI, which I will admit I had to look that up. It's Family Leadership Training Institute. What was really cool about this event is that it was a multilingual event. So it was being translated in real time between English and Spanish. We had a French speaker present. There are other languages that are there in the larger capacity, but there was a group of women who had graduated through this program who were able to speak to local leaders. It wasn't just us from Brush that were there. There was Fort Morgan, there was other community leaders, including Mikhail Mayers from the chamber. They presented these projects that they worked on through this program for a project that they wanted to see in their community and how to implement it and how that could be a benefit for the community. And then they got to ask us questions as local leaders. And it was a really, really neat event. I wish we could see that a little bit more. So I really appreciated being a part of that. And then my second item is, Monty, I had requested an update on the Westwood subdivision.
Oh, that was on me, sorry. I do have that just after, I apologize. So Westwood subdivision, where we last left off, was council approved their subdivision plat, their final plat, with conditions. And one of those conditions was the subdivision improvement agreement needed to be executed prior to the recording of the plat. So right now, it's all just on paper. There's no actual individual properties that are for sale. And so in addition to the conditions, it was talking about all the necessary access permits being squared away. And so the developer has been working with CDOT, and we've kind of been on the sidelines waiting for that discussion to get where it needs to go on turning radiuses for either County Road 26 or Yellowstone Avenue. And CDOT said you can do just one of them, because they're concerned for both of them with the ditch right there is that any larger trucks that have to go north, if there's anybody that's trying to go south from those roads onto 34, that truck has to wait for them to go out before they can make that wide turn. And so their concern was in that scenario, someone behind the truck getting impatient, passing them up illegally, and there potentially being a collision and any injuries and that kind of thing there. Ironically, we actually had that situation already at Hospital Road and 34. We mentioned that to them, but they were like, well,
Yeah, pretty much most of those turns all along 34 are kind of like that.
yeah, and so, but they encourage the developer to come up with a plan that the city supports that would adequately, according to CDOT's call, ultimately be sufficient. And so what they're looking at doing right now is Highway 26 specifically is working with the ditch company on widening the existing culvert there, adding however much to ensure that one, we can build that way, it's not going to encroach on anybody's private property rights and that sort of thing. So that's where that's currently stuck at the moment. Once that gets squared away, we can come back to the subdivision improvement agreement, because in the midst of all that, the developer and I were working on just a couple other details that were existing through the last couple of years of conversation that just needed to get ironed out. Real simple stuff, but we just had to get on the same page as far as the exhibits, ensuring that all the different pieces are checked there.
So I did have one thing that I needed clarity on. How many phases was that again? Was it 5 or 6?
5, if I remember right.
My concern is that with the initial road being put in, the access on 34, phases 1 through 4 being built, and then the access on 26 not being put in until phase 5, and if for some reason communications continue to break down at that point and we cannot get that access, we now have this entire development with one access point. And that really concerns me, so maybe I'm misunderstanding that.
So there's, so that the access to County Road 26 is required at phase 4, so it would be just the first 3 phases, not the first 4. So initially it was just the first 4, but we changed it at the end there to the first 3 could only utilize that access. Now there is the other access to the north, of course, off of Harbor that comes up and over and in that the neighborhoods to the north utilizes, Carlsbad, Yellowstone.
Yeah, but that's adding traffic where traffic already exists. So that it's creating more traffic flow on roads that already have traffic flow. So I really, maybe we can talk about this offline or something, but I wanted to make sure that I understand it a little bit better.
Sure, and we can. A traffic impact study was done that factored in all those different parts and where people are expected to come in and where and at what portions of the subdivision. So all that from
And
the
the
staff
traffic
standpoint
impact
has been
study, that
addressed.
included phases 1 through 3 with just the one access.
In all the different factors, so phase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay. But yeah, I would like to talk about it more, maybe I'll stop by.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet, thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Where are we? Council reports. Anybody else? I don't really have anything. I do want to thank Allison for coming to our event, and it's kind of a cool, really cool thing. It's through the Family Center, so it just kind of touches a lot of, we're able to talk to people in different walks of life that, and a lot of it was to get them comfortable talking to people about things too, so it was just a really cool event. Anyway, alright, if nobody has anything else, I would look for a motion to adjourn so we can move into our work session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Alright.
I need just a second to get us off A Street.
You're getting late.
Hey, Dell, did you get anything from John McGinn? Anything substantial?
No, we've talked, I'll be back.
Okay, no worries, no worries.
Do you want anything on up yet?
No, thank you.